What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I am Onell Elliott. This is Onell Media, and you are awesome. Here we talk about everything dealing with content creation, from setting up websites to cameras to lenses to audio setups and lights. If that is something that you are interested in, please consider leaving a like, a subscribe, and also make sure you ring that bell so you can be back every time I drop a video talking about tips, tricks, and camera gear. Today, we're going to be talking about the wow week we're having in cameras.
Hey, Brody, I ain't trying to get all in your business,
What?
but you might want to tell them about that new iPhone camera.
No, we're not talking about the iPhone.
They got that new software where you can actually change the depth and the focus.
I know the iPhone has
app.
an incredible camera that they're getting ready to put on there. Yes, and everything they're doing with software, I get it.
We got to get on that before it's too late, man. We only got so much time to do
I'm just saying,
videos.
I know what they're doing with software, but we're going to talk about that on the next video. Right now, we got Canon.
All right, you better be on the next video.
All right, thanks.
Do it.
I appreciate it. Anyway, we're going to be talking about the Canon EOS R3. Yes, they getting ready to drop a camera, and I just want to look at the specs and see how they compare to other offerings from Canon. This might be a very big thing in the world of content creation. So let's get into it. All right. All right. Now, Canon has just said that they are going to be dropping the new Canon EOS R3. Now, we're not Peter McKinnon or any of the other bigger channels. So no, I do not have one. I don't have anything to show you. But we are going to go over those specs because you know how my boy likes to do the comparisons. So let's get into it, all right? Now, this camera is supposed to sit firmly in between the 1DX Mark III and also the EOS R5. Now, my personal opinion, we're going to compare these statistics, these stats, these things that make the camera stick out. And in my personal opinion, I don't believe it's a middle ground camera. I want to say it's the mirrorless 1DX Mark III. R3. But anyway, we're going to go over these specs, and you guys tell me what you think in the comments. But now we're going to get into these specs, all right? So let me see what we got here on the handy dandy iPad. Apple fanboy. But anyway, with the EOS R3 body, it's coming in at a whopping $5,999 American dollars. Woo! But you also have the 1DX Mark III that comes in at $6,499 USD. Pretty stiff, bro. Pretty stiff. And then you have the R5, which comes in at $3,899 USD. Now, one thing to take in consideration is this camera has not shipped out yet. We don't even know how many of these cameras are going to be available when they do drop. So with that in mind, please remember, by the time this camera drops, the 1DX Mark III might be a little lower, as well as the R5 might be a little bit lower. You got to count up your pennies and see what you want to do. Now, if you have the money to go to the 1DX Mark III, is it really worth it? In my opinion, no. So let's get to the specs. All right. Blah, blah, blah. Crop factor. The full frame back is illuminated stacked CMOS sensor in the R3. Now, this is a first for Canon. So this is going to be better for your camera users. Do you need it? Well, not necessarily, but it is something that the R5 and the 1DX Mark III does not have. If you're trying to get the most spec'd out, get the most spec'd out, right? So then we're going to go to the ISO range. Now, the EOS R3 goes from 100 ISO to 102/400 ISO. But it is expandable to 204/800 ISO. Now, let's be honest. No, you're not ever going to go that high. It would be unusable. The amount of noise that you would get would be incredible. But it is an option that you have with that expandable. With the 1DX Mark III, as well as with the R5, there is no expansion. Both of those cap out at 102,400 ISO. Then let's get to the flash. What? Why is the flash something that they have on? Okay, but with the flash, no, the R3 does not have a flash. No, the R5 does not have a flash. But the 1DX Mark III has a built-in flash. That, come on, man. If you're a professional, you're never using it. Let's be honest. I'm never using a built-in camera flash. I don't want a built-in camera flash. When would I ever need to directly put light from the camera onto my subject? I would just use, if you're buying these cameras, let's be honest. If you are buying the R3 or the 1DX Mark III, you are a professional camera person. Photos, videos, whatever the case may be, you are a pro. Pros do not use the light that comes on the camera. That's just not something that pros do. So that's really not something to take in. But then we're going to get into the number of focusing points. Okay, so the R3, when you're taking stills, it has a max of 1,053 zones. Ooh, zones? What? Why are they using zones? See, this is confusing because when you get to the 1DX Mark III, because it is mirrored. Oh, that's one thing, man. Stupid mirror. Who really wants that stupid mirror, man? But the 1DX Mark III has 191 points of cross-type autofocus, and that is for stills. And for video, it has 155 points. Now, the R3 has 819 zones for video, which is the same amount of zones that the R5 has for stills and video or movie. All right, now the frames per second. When you are taking pictures, the R3 goes up to 30 frames per second. That's not too shabby. That's kind of good. But then when you get to the 1DX Mark III, you have 59.94 frames per second, 60 frames per second. And then when you go over to the R5, you only have 20 frames per second. Now, if you are the type of person that is going to be using this camera for sports or anything fast moving to take pictures, that is something to really think about. For the extra $500, the 1DX Mark III seems to be the best camera for stills. But skip all the dimensions. We don't care. Big bulky camera. R5 is the smallest. You could get a grip to try to bulk it out just a little bit. But if you're going to be rigging it up for video, I mean, that grip is really gnarly if you are a video shooter. I'm not going to lie. The R3 grip and the grip that is on the 1DX Mark III, it's really bulky if you're going to be shooting video. I mean, it's just a big bulky setup. But the R3 is actually lighter than the 1DX Mark III, even though they are similar and have similar dimensions. Of course, the lightest of the three would be the R5, but that's really up to you and how you shoot. Now, with video recording, this is when things start getting a little crazy, all right? We're going to go from the R5 and then work our way up. Now, the R5, the baby brother, has the 8K. The 8K is pretty much unusable. The overheating situation, 8K really can't be used. What, it records for a second or so? Psh, who really needs that? Come on now. 1 second of 8K footage before it overheats. It does have 4K, 4K UHD, and full HD on R5. Now we're gonna go over to the EOS R3. 6K RAW. This is in camera. In the camera. You are gonna be able to shoot 6K RAW. Oh my goodness. I think I'm gonna be sick. This is the perfect camera. All right, but you see my bias. Even though I'm a Sony shooter right now, I'm shooting on the FX3. I always got to shout out Sony. What up, fam? But anyway, we're going to go to the 1DX Mark III, which shoots 4K. It's cropped. You also have 4K UHD, which would be a smaller frame, 3840 by 2160 is what it cuts it down to. 1920 1080p full HD. So clearly, the better of the specs or the highest of the specs goes to the R5, but we've had plenty of time to witness that the 8K that is promised on the R5 doesn't actually really come to fruition. The 6K RAW seems like it is going to be a really feasible thing with the R3. All of the people who have had their hands on the R3 have not complained about any overheating. Shout outs Peter McKinnon. But man, what can I say? Now, the battery life for each camera, once again, I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. With the R5, you get up to 700 shots. Not too shabby. That's way more than a full set for me. Something like a wedding would maybe be about 1,200 for me. But outside of that, anything else that I would be shooting, I wouldn't be coming anywhere near that 700 shots. Now, we are going to the R3. The R3 is said to have up to 860 shots of battery life. Mind-blowing. Just mind-blowing. But then, you got the big boss with the mirror and the camera, the 1DX Mark III. If you are using that viewfinder, you're going to be getting 2,850 shots of battery life. What? Now, if you are using the back screen, you will only be getting 610 possible shots. That's worse than the other two cameras. And the way that I shoot nowadays, I'm really not going to be using the viewfinder. Honestly, if you're not going to be using a viewfinder, it really, what more else is there to say? Autofocus during video. It's the touch to focus or using the points. All three cameras have that. The weight, don't have the weights on here. Come on, Canon, why you not putting the weights down, man? You being a little tricky, ain't you? But anyway, we don't want to talk about the weights. We already know the R3 and the 1DX Mark III are going to be way heavier than the R5. It goes up just like that, how the lineup is set up. So it'll be the R5, then the R3, and then it'll be the 1DX Mark III as the heaviest. Viewfinder coverage. Both approximately 100% vertically coverage, 23 millimeter eye point, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. Full view. You get full view. All three cameras. Megapixels. This is another thing that's okay. On one hand, you have the 1DX Mark III shooting way faster than both other cameras, right? But it only has 20.1 megapixels. And then you have the R3, which is shooting faster than the R5, but only has 24.1 megapixels. Then you have the R5 that is shooting 45 megapixel still images. What? Come on, man. And that actually, See, when you're shooting sports photography, a lot of the times you may need to crop in. That becomes an issue if you're going to be using a 1DX Mark III, because even though it takes more pictures, you're not going to be able to crop as deep with the 1DX Mark III or the R3. But you would with the R5 that doesn't shoot as fast. It is actually the slowest of the three cameras as far as shooting stills. That makes things a little bit trickier. I was going to be able to just tell you guys from everything I was reading at first, like, yeah, if you want the lighter version of the 1DX Mark III, a little bit spec down, but really not really. It's actually a better camera. You should go with the R3. If you are going to be shooting sports and things of that nature, maybe you're going to want to go pick up the 1DX Mark III. But with the megapixel count, it's going to be hard to crop that. And it's a lot of fast moving action, and you're not going to be able to perfectly frame it up. Oh man. One thing I can say is the 1DX Mark III would probably be the perfect wedding photography camera. The R5, it won't catch as many pictures, but it actually seems as though it would be the better of the three cameras if you are going to have a lot of fast moving motion, a la being out and doing nature photography or doing sports, races, car races, things of that nature. So what do I have to say in this review? The EOS R3 is a freaking beast. Are you kidding me, man? Look, I love my FX3, but if I'm going to be able to shoot 6K 120 raw, it might be time for me to switch over to Canon, man. Are you kidding me? But yeah, man, let me know what you think. Go ahead and say something in the comments. If you are back, you are the fam, go ahead, bring it in, give me a hug. All right, I'm rocking with you. Please like, subscribe, ring that bell notification if you have anything that you took away from this video. And with that being said, man, I'll see you guys on the next one. So, peace. I love you guys.